If there's one company that you could truly say built the modern world, the one that was the silent architect of the 20th century, the actual nervous system of America, it's got to be AT&T. This is the story of a corporate empire that was born, literally executed by the US government, and then somehow rose from its own ashes. So that brings us to the big question we're going to tackle in this explainer. Is AT&T the single most consequential company in American history? I know, it's a huge claim, but stick with me because by the end of this, I think you might just be convinced.
And here's what makes this whole story so incredible. AT&T has always lived this kind of double life. On one hand, you've got the architect, this absolute idea factory that gave us the transistor, the laser. They even accidentally discovered the leftover radiation from the Big Bang. But all of that was funded by its other identity, the monopoly. A company so powerful, so dominant, the government had to step in and shatter it into pieces, only for it to slowly, piece by piece, put itself back together again. So, let's start at the beginning. Act 1. The Architect. This is the story of how one company built the physical and even the intellectual infrastructure for the entire modern era.
It all started with this historic deal. See, back in the early 20th century, the government was getting ready to break AT&T up. So the company came to them with a grand bargain. They said, look, let us be a regulated monopoly, and in exchange, we promise universal service. That meant they would connect every single person in America. They'd use the profits from wiring up big cities to pay for the expensive job of running phone lines to the most remote farms in the country. It was this incredible mission to tie the nation together.
And the way they built this thing was just obsessive. The Bell system was engineered to be the most reliable machine on planet Earth. They aimed for what's called 5 nines of reliability. That's 99.999% uptime. You know what that means? It means the entire national phone network was down for less than 5 minutes per year. It was insane. The network powered itself, which is why your old landline phone worked during a blackout. And everything they built was over-engineered to last for 40 years. This made them the go-to partner for the US military for the most critical projects, like building top-secret radar lines in the Arctic during the Cold War.
Okay, so if the Bell system was the body, the reliable, unkillable machine, then Bell Labs was its brain. And it was an engine of pure innovation unlike anything the world has ever seen, all paid for by that steady stream of monopoly money.
This right here basically sums up the entire mission of Bell Labs. AT&T would hire the most brilliant scientists and engineers on the planet, put them in a lab, and pretty much tell them, go invent the future. Don't worry about whether it'll make money next quarter. Just discover something amazing. Can you imagine? Now, to really appreciate their greatest invention, you have to remember what the world was like before it. All electronics. Radios, the earliest computers, they ran on these big, hot, fragile glass vacuum tubes. They were incredibly unreliable. An early computer would fill an entire room and would break down constantly because a tube would burn out.
And then, in 1947, a team at Bell Labs created this, the transistor. It's a tiny, solid-state switch. It could do everything a vacuum tube could, but it was small, used almost no power, and was unbelievably reliable. It is, and this is not an exaggeration, the fundamental building block of our entire digital world. Probably the most important invention of the 20th century.
Just to put its impact into perspective, take a look at the phone in your hand. That device has over 15 billion of these tiny little switches inside of it. Every laptop, every server, every smart device, it all exists because of that one invention that came out of Bell Labs.
And it wasn't just hardware, they basically built the software of our world too. And they did it almost by accident. The story goes, a couple of programmers just wanted to play a space video game they'd written. So they found this old, unused computer tucked away in a corner of the lab. And to get their game to work on it, they just wrote their own simple, elegant operating system for it. They called it Unix. And they wrote a programming language for it called C. Well, that little side project was so powerful that today, macOS, Linux, Android, the servers that run the internet, pretty much everything is a direct descendant of that operating system they built just to play a game.
But all this success, all this innovation, it built an empire that became so vast, so powerful, that the United States government decided it was a threat and that it had to be destroyed. Welcome to Act 2, an empire shattered.
I mean, it is really hard to wrap your head around just how big Ma Bell was at its peak. This wasn't just a company, it was practically a nation-state. It had over 1 million employees. And get this, it had more assets than General Motors, Ford, and IBM combined. The government got scared. They saw AT&T as not just a monopoly, but almost a parallel power to the governor itself.
So, in 1984, the government performed the biggest corporate breakup in history. They took the Bell system and carved it up. The original AT&T was left with the long-distance business and Bell Labs, but all the local phone companies were spun off into 7 brand-new, massive regional companies. They were immediately nicknamed the Baby Bells. And overnight, you had 7 new Fortune 500 companies that didn't exist the day before.
But here's the crazy thing. When you shatter an organism that strong, its DNA finds a way to survive. And in Act 3, we see the impossible happen. One of the children grows up to become the parent.
So after the breakup, the original AT&T actually started to struggle. But one of the Baby Bells, a company called Southwestern Bell, or SBC, was absolutely thriving. Led by a really aggressive CEO, SBC just went on a wild shopping spree. First, it bought its fellow Baby Bells one by one. And then, in 2005, it did the unthinkable. It bought its own parent company, the original AT&T.
Let that sink in for a second. The child literally ate the parent. Southwestern Bell bought AT&T, but here's the brilliant part. They knew the name AT&T was iconic. It meant something. So after they bought the company, they renamed themselves AT&T. The company we know today is technically Southwestern Bell, just wearing the legendary AT&T name. Humpty Dumpty was putting himself back together again.
And that brings us right up to the modern era. The reassembled AT&T has gone right back to its roots, building the new nervous system for the 21st century.
A perfect example of this is a project called FirstNet. After 9/11, the government realized that in a crisis, police and firefighters' communications get totally jammed up by everyone else trying to make calls. So they put out a contract to build a separate, dedicated network just for first responders. And who won that contract? AT&T. Think of it like a VIP lane on the cellular highway. It's built for life or death situations. It's basically universal service, just reborn for a new age. And just like they once wired the entire nation with copper cables, today they're doing it all over again, but with glass. AT&T is in the middle of building out the largest fiber optic network in the country, passing more than 30 million locations so far. It's the exact same playbook from 100 years ago, just with much, much faster technology. So, let's go back to our big question. Is AT&T the most consequential company in American history? Well, the case really rests on these 3 pillars. You've got its legacy, the brain that literally invented our digital world. You've got its incredible resilience, the body that survived its own execution and came back. And you have its enduring criticality, the shield that the nation still relies on for its most important communications. Which really leaves us with one final thought. Just look at your phone. Think about the internet connection in your home. The hardware, the software, the network it all runs on. All of it, every single piece, traces its DNA back to this one company. So the question isn't just whether they were consequential. The real question is, can you find any part of your modern world that they didn't help build?